Hello and welcome to 15 Minutes of Faith, brought to you by Inner City Women of Faith. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Inner City Women of Faith. You can also find us on the web at innercitywomenofaith.org. If you like what you hear today, please make sure and like it, subscribe, and share it with family and friends. So my name is Nicole Rivas, and our topic for today is, did God really do that, or was that you? I'll say it again. Are you sure God did that, or was that you? And our text is found in Proverbs 19, verse 3. Proverbs 19, verse 3. A person's own folly leads to their ruin, yet their heart rages against the Lord. Another version puts it this way, the New Living Translation, which I think is a little clearer. It says, people ruin their lives by their foolishness, and then they are angry at the Lord. People ruin their lives by their own foolishness, and then they are angry with the Lord. You know, this came to me because I was sitting watching the news, and they were interviewing people that were attending this event with a lot of people, no mask or very few masks, and no social distancing. And they were going about interviewing people and saying, well, aren't you concerned about COVID or spreading COVID? And people gave their various reasons. And this one woman stood up with such pride, and she said, well, I'm a Christian and I believe in God. So if I get COVID, God's will was for me to get COVID. I was like, whoa, my mouth fell open and then closed. I was so shocked because literally her testimony is, if I get sick and die, God did that to me. That was her testimony, y'all. And not only was that her testimony, that's what she was saying to other people who have lost loved ones. If your loved one died, God did that to them. Oh my gosh, that hurt my heart to hear someone say that, because I don't think she was being mean. I think she just believed that. Someone had taught her that. And so that was in my spirit for several days, and I wasn't happy with it. And this verse came to me when I was rolling it in my mind and talking about it with God. Proverbs 19:3. People ruin their lives by their foolishness and then are angry at the Lord. That's a powerful word right there, because she might be an extreme case. I don't hear too many people talking about, if I get a disease and die, that's God's will. There's some who will say that, but that's not what I commonly hear. But I hear some version of this. I hear people in relationships, and rather than work on the relationship, rather than look at how they've contributed to the breakdown of the relationship, they say stuff like, well, they weren't the one God meant for me. Or they lose their job because of issues with their work ethic. And instead of saying, I need to work on myself, they say, well, God has something better for me. And I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm saying there might be a step before you get there about why this happened and what lessons you can learn so God can give you the better. But we so often don't do that. We so often do happy speak in the church, which is every time something goes wrong, that's God's will. Instead of ever stopping and saying, am I sure? Is this about my choices? Is this about the choices of someone else that I am letting into my space? Where is the roots of this, and letting God actually speak to us about that? Because if you let God speak to you about that, sometimes he'll say, Yes, baby, I have a better job for you, but we got to talk about your tardiness. I'll be honest, God has had to talk to me about my tardiness for 20 years, but his grace is sufficient. But yes, I have to work on that. And so God sometimes is trying to communicate to us because, yes, he has better, but he can't release the better because we're engaged in foolishness and we will ruin the better. Now, I want to delve in deep to this text because there's some nuggets here that I want you to take home with you, right? So first, people ruin their lives by their foolishness and they are angry at the Lord. Another version says, and they rage in their hearts at the Lord. That's the second part of the verse, but I want to start there first because it's important. The word here, heart, is the Hebrew word leb, which means your inner man, your inner person, your soul, your mind, your will, your emotions, that on the inside. And so it's interesting that they say rage in their heart, not necessarily rage with their lips. So this isn't talking about someone who's vocally saying, I'm mad with God, I'm this with God, I'm that with God. No. This is a person that might be saying the exact opposite. But on the inside, they're mad with God or they're raging against God. And then that Hebrew word is another interesting one because it's interpreted as rage or anger, but it actually has a whole spectrum of human emotions assigned to it. It can mean worry, anxiousness, anger, frustration, annoyance. So translate however it works for you. Because of poor choices, I am frustrated with God. Even though I'm saying bless the Lord and everything else, on the inside, I am frustrated with God. Or because of bad choices and the consequences of those bad choices, now I'm constantly afraid of that it's going to happen again. Because I'm not owning it. I'm not taking any responsibility for it. So it seems so out of my control. So I'm worried that I'm going to have another bad relationship. I never address why I picked that other person in the first place. So I think it's just random. So I'm constantly anxious about loving again. I'm scared about loving again. Or I lost my job and I never talked about what was that? Why was that? So I'm worried that I'm going to lose this job or I won't be able to pay my bills. You see, and I'm doing all of this on the inside. And this text is saying, well, some of that stuff was caused by your foolishness. And on the inside, you're having all of these emotions that you're directing towards God, whether you realize it or not. Because when you worry, that's saying, I don't trust God. When you are frustrated, that is saying, I don't trust God. So whether you're blaming God vocally or not, when you allow these things to hang out much longer than they should hang out, that actually is telling you that there's an issue about how you are feeling about God and his promises and his love for you on the inside. There's something there if I'm frustrated. There's something there if I'm worried, if I'm anxious, if I'm angry. There's something there about my relationship with God. There's some disappointment. There's something scary to me. There's something random that I don't feel I can fully depend on God. Now hear me. I'm not saying if something happens that is worrying and you have a moment of concern, then there's something wrong with your relationship with God. No. I'm not talking about that. Emotions are natural. We'll have emotions. I'm talking about when you're nursing this thing over and over again. Not when a situation happened and worry happens and you take it to the Lord. No, I'm saying where you day, night, worry and worry and worry and worry, and you take it to God, but then you pick it back up. So we're talking about where you're making the choice to live in that emotion. When that happens, I'm telling you, there's an issue between you and God. And you have to take time to let God talk to you about that. Talk to you about that. Is that something that happened and God needs to minister healing? Or was that a choice I made and God still needs to minister healing, but he also needs to teach me about my choices so I don't have to keep going down that road? Take a minute and think about that. And then we go back to the first part of the verse. Ruin their lives with their foolishness. Ruin their lives there. It really means to pervert, to twist, to turn upside down your path or your journey or your course in life. So in other words, it's saying God has a certain path, a certain course, a certain desire for your life. And with your choices, you can turn God's plan upside down. That's not something we talk about in the church. We act like we're little robots and our choices don't matter. No, our choices matter, and the Bible is telling you it matters. So yes, we can turn it upside down with our choices. And the Bible says, but foolishness makes you do this. What does foolishness mean? Well, we know in Proverbs, foolishness means a lot of things. If you don't listen, that's defined as foolishness in the Bible. Don't listen to God. Don't listen to other people. Don't seek wise counsel. I'm trying to make a decision. I don't seek out people who know better than me. People correct me who know better than me. And I don't listen to them because I'm stuck in my opinion. I talk too much and listen too little. All of that the Bible defines as foolishness. I'm quick-tempered, so I'm always showing every emotion at every moment. The Bible defines that as foolishness. But here's the one I really want to land on. The Bible says that a fool says in his heart, there is no God. Now, that's said in Psalms 14:1. And when it says that, we always assume that refers to people who don't believe in God. The Psalms weren't written for people who don't believe in God. The Psalms were written for people who believe in God, or at least say they believe. But what does it say? It says in their heart. There's that word again, leb. So it's someone who's saying one thing with their mouth, I believe, I believe, I believe. But on the inside, they're acting like there's no God. They're acting like there's no God. And the Bible says that's foolishness. And it says, the next verse, when it says God is looking for someone who is wise, how does it define wise? It says looking for someone who's wise, someone who truly seeks the Lord. So how does he define the difference? The Bible defines foolishness as those who talk God, but don't act like God exists in their hearts, and those who talk God and act like God exists because they seek God. They do not lean to their own understanding. They seek God in everything. They don't say, oh, well, this is too little to bother God. I'm not going to ask God about this. Or they go on their way making all kinds of decisions and never ask God until something goes wrong. That is foolishness and will pervert your path. Every step, I don't care how small it is, ask God. I'm going on an interview. Yes, I pray about the interview, but guess what? I also ask, what should I wear? How should I do my hair? What questions should I ask? Every detail. And I know that sounds like a lot, but when you get used to it, when you get used to God being your best friend, it will be so natural. People will ask you, did you pray on that? And you'll be like, I don't remember. Why? Because you pray on everything, so it's just natural. Just natural. So that's our word for today. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this word blessed you. I speak a prayer over your life. I bind foolishness and I release wisdom. I open our ears so that we may hear the word of the Lord in everything, and that our path will be straight and guided by God. I love you. See you next week.
Thank you for joining us for 15 Minutes of Faith. 15 Minutes of Faith is brought to you by Inner City Women of Faith. You can learn more about our ministries at innercitywomenoffaith.org. Inner City Women of Faith exists to provide a global platform and support for women-led ministries that proclaim and demonstrate faith, life, and love in Jesus Christ. We invite you to partner with Inner City Women of Faith or to give a one-time gift to help us support women-led ministries at innercitywomenoffaith.org. Hear today's message again on YouTube and Facebook at Inner City Women of Faith. And remember to follow, like, subscribe, and share us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you for joining us for 15 Minutes of Faith. See you next week.